Good afternoon, everyone. We'll wait a few minutes for others to join. Duncan isn't able to join us today. I see he's set up he's set up AI meeting notes.
He's away doing treasury withdrawal work.
Yes. I can give a brief update from the ISC on that.
Is the recording started as well, or is it just the notes?
I don't think the recording has started. I also don't think I can do it.
Yes, I was worried about that. Permission.
Yeah. Christian, would you be able to start the meeting recording? I think you need to be an Intersect member to do that.
I'll try pinging someone briefly. Worst case, you can always use your cell phone, Kim.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think I can hold the cell phone and
I don't have access either, sorry.
I'll just paste the agenda and then check whether anyone has anything else to add. Hi, Alex. Yeah, so we have 7 TSC members. My understanding is we are quorate. I've not received apologies from the others, but Duncan S isn't here, so it's possible they've already made their apologies to Duncan. Hi, thanks.
Cool.
And Christian, if you can let us know if anyone can start the recording for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, trying to. No response yet.
I can potentially record it using OBS.
Thanks. If you don't mind, Tim, that'd be great.
Just setting that up. I mean. Okay, and it's recording.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. So this is the Intersect Technical Steering Committee meeting of Wednesday, the 9th of July, 2025. The meeting is in session and is quorate with 7 TSC members present at the current time. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm aware of a few items on the agenda. Update from Marcus on the IOG work items raised last week. Parameter Committee notification of intent to update the Plutus memory limits. Node 10.5.1 to be released shortly. Thank you to Adam and Johnny for attending the release meeting yesterday. Gap in the economic expertise raised by the Parameter Committee, so maybe Neil could talk to that. SIP 135 disaster recovery testing. This is an item which has come to my attention. We had always intended to do this, but we've been too busy looking at other things, so it would be good to kick that off. So my plan is to raise that with the Security Council, Christian. And going back to an item that we've circled around a few times, improving TWD exposure. We've had some discussion about this. I think we just need to make people more aware of the technical working groups and update some of the Intersect documentation around that. So those are the items I had on the agenda. Adam, I think you had an action from last time, but I can't recall what it was.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I'm on the road. I think it was to draft up a potential response to a request, the request for review that Marcus is going to address, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Adam. So we'll cover that under the first point then.
Okay, so shall I?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, apologize because
Sorry, Marcus. Let's just double check. Were there any other items that anyone wanted to raise? Tim, you've joined us. Christian, you've joined us. Is there anything that you would like to put on the agenda? Is there anything that any TSC member would like to put on the agenda?
Just quick update from myself that me and Tex are working on the technical working group. So we do have a page up under the open source committee with the calendar cadences. And we're working with Sebastian to get recordings up on the YouTube as well. So
great. So we'll cover that later. Tim, anything specific from your side?
Not really. Just really to update you, the reason why I'm here is obviously to facilitate any comms requirements. Obviously, we're heading into Treasury withdrawal, and there's a whole bunch of comms out there, so just need to align.
Okay, so maybe we should add Treasury withdrawal and comms to the items. There was some discussion, as I said, at the ISC meeting on Monday about that.
And I have a note regarding last week's topic on the Oversight Committee. That's it. That's very quick talk.
Hi,
Hi,
Ben. So on the first point, so this mempool monitoring project, there was a little bit of fractionate and parallel on individual topics back and forth between Jeff Watson from IOE and also Kevin. You were involved, but not in all the emails. So it was like an email back and forth, email conversation, but with a fractionate recipient list. So I tried to summarize it all. Kevin and me pointed out that first of all, we need to really clarify what exact project it means so that there is no confusion with this more technical oriented mempool project. And then I asked Jeff that in the last meeting here last week, we concluded that we need a written proposal or something clear as a demand or as an idea how this line item could be brought over or assigned to the TSC. On that point, there was one more clarification about this, what I already mentioned, this potential not open source solution that they have looked into. So a partner on their side that could help develop or deliver this line item on their side. And the partner would be Checkpoint, with Dan Deney as a representative. And this was one of the options they already looked into or still have it, but it will be a closed source solution. And they look at it not so much because it is closed source, but more because of the name Checkpoint behind of it. And they consider it as may very appealing for institutions if it will be implemented in such a way. Still, they ask if we as DSC would be open or keen to look into a process where checkpoint could be also considered or respected in our whatever it is, standard process or bid for lots or whatever it is, or if it will be assigned to the DSC, it is already clear that it must be an open source project and fully transparent and so on. This part is not yet fully clarified, but my point to Jeff was that we need, whatever it is from IOE side, a written description that makes very clear under what conditions or what they would expect from the DSC if this line item is handed over. Not yet here. So this is considered here like more as an update for this week, but nothing really material that I could present here in a written form.
Johnny, go ahead.
So my question last week was, are they changing direction, IOE, because previously they were upset with us going through any kind of tendering process whatsoever, or bid for lots or whatever you want to call it, and we had a board publication saying that we couldn't be supported in any way with enough administrative staff to work this kind of thing. And I know this is a reduced set because it's only 1 or 2 line items from the IOE budget. But the other point that I raised last week was the DREPs need to be aware that IOE are reassigning allocations, because that's not what they're signing off on treasury withdrawals at the moment. The treasury withdrawal would be written in such a way, I would hope, to match the proposal that was put forward by IOE directly, which was for them to manage. So my question remains, what made them change their mind about managing their own proposal, and what made them change their mind about the TSC having no involvement in any kind of tender process or bid for lot system?
If I can add my doubts on it, it's an interesting question, but in the first moment, as long as we don't have anything written, it is not really relevant. So I mean, when we get something written, then it is a topic for us to figure out if we ourselves would be able or consider ourselves as responsible, or as some entity that could pick up or should pick this up. But as long as we don't get anything, it is more like just to have it mentioned here. This is the same thing what I already said last week here. I was asked to bring this up to the attention of the technical steering committee, so it was not on me to just decide on myself that I will not bring it up. But
No, absolutely. It was good that you brought it up, because it's something we need to be aware of. But we still don't have an answer to the questions, I guess.
So Duncan, you're saying it's okay for us to manage it if IOG doesn't.
I was joking, obviously.
Facetious.
Were you
so the reality is that IOG has bid for this. It's part of the package that they put forward, and they have an implicit contract with DREPs to carry out that work, right? So there would need to be some kind of amendment made to the work program if this work is not being carried out. Now, Sebastian could possibly comment on what's happening at IOG, but the suspicion would be that there's insufficient capacity to carry out this project, that the project was put in speculatively, that the expectation was that they wouldn't perhaps be able to do this, and they've been more successful than they would have expected. So they're now in a position where there's a work item which they possibly can't carry out. And the reason I'm saying that is because if they could carry it out, if IOG could carry it out, they would presumably be doing that and not approaching us. The complication is with the possible vendor, and we're pretty clear that we would only deal with open source software. Or also the remit that we'd set up was to focus on layer 1 scope. We could obviously form a working group to look at layer 2 tooling etc. But we had agreed to restrict our scope primarily to layer 1 before. So arguably, it is arguably out of scope for what we could do, but we could help facilitate a solution here if we wanted to. So the number of questions procedurally for the TSC is this within remit? If it is within remit, how would we proceed with it? And would we be willing to consider closed source? And I would say the position we'd reached before, for the benefit of the new joining members, was that we would only consider closed source solutions if there was no realistic open source alternative. So if something was absolutely essential and there was no realistic open source alternative, then it's not clear to me that that is what Checkpoint is proposing. I think they're basically saying they want some funding to develop their own closed source solution, which is really the kind of thing that Catalyst supports, rather than the program that was put forward by Intersect. So I say, so
you mentioned before I should comment. I can maybe.
Yes,
I don't know any context on why or how. Or actually, on the why. I can only also speculate there because I was not involved in how or why the IO management reached out to the TSC here. Unfortunately, I was not fully around last week and also a bit late today. Sorry about that. So maybe it would be interesting to see, is it now really that IO maybe just wants to have comment on what would be the requirements for subcontracting this anyways? Because I think it was already penciled in cooperation with TBD, right? And now maybe it's about what is the technical steering committee's opinion and what a good solution would look like here. Of course, we're not here to kind of do the work for IO. Maybe it's more about if there is a proposal of what is to be worked on here, we could maybe comment on it. But as you said, Marcus, there's nothing written here. And I guess also it could be seen as an inquiry on, is a closed source solution viable here? And I do understand that I'm not sure if this was voted on or not, but open source sounds more appealing and more for the benefit of the community. Also, especially as it's a security monitoring system, I guess. And what I could comment on is I saw that thing, but more of in a context, and they're doing it right now for a Catalyst proposal, which I think is pitched as a closed source tool to be used by people, but probably maybe they would be willing to open source it and put more work in it in a bigger project like the one which is in discussion here. And maybe to comment here, what I saw was a tool which is looking through the mainnet or like a public network of Cardano, the transactions and kind of monitoring the transactions on kind of known patterns of weird or maybe known exploit usages. Kind of the keyword I definitely saw a pattern they're looking for is double satisfaction. And basically a monitoring tool, which is, I think, accessible to anyone just looking on the main net in the Go. With some also visualization on the transaction flow, what's happening. I really got intrigued by the visualization, which could in itself also be a very good tool if it's a reusable library. But this is what got demonstrated to me in the context of Checkpoint doing this Catalyst proposal and wanting to show it off.
Duncan, do you want to?
Yeah, briefly. I mean, I partly said this last week, but I think we need to be clear with Jeff, and I think he needs to be clear about what he's asking. But I think we can give him some guidance. My view would be he needs to say clearly what he is asking. Is he asking us for advice? Like, he's finding difficulty, trying to find a contractor to subcontract to, because whatever. Is he looking for advice? Is he trying to subcontract this thing back to us? I think we should say no. We won't. we're not going to wind this thing deeper. You can unwind it. You can unwind it by, formally saying in your contract with Intersect, we wish to hand this item back, and then it may well then be that the TSC needs to do something with that afterwards, like consult with the product committee again, say, do we really want to do this? Do we want to change its scope, or do we just want to return the funds to the treasury? But we can decide that afterwards. But I think he needs to be clear about what he's actually asking, and I think we should not accept. We should tell him he can't ask us to solve his problem. He needs to either hand it back, or if he's just asking for advice, that's fine. He can ask for advice. That would be my view. And also, I think we should advise him closed source solutions in this context are not okay, and this is core stuff. There's no obvious reason why closed source would be a necessity. It hadn't been discussed in advance. I think we should just say, hand it back and tell them to go to Catalyst instead for that, or put in a new separate proposal and clarify why it has to be closed source.
Yeah, but Ben.
Sorry, I would actually like to put forward a motion that we, as a group, agree not to promote the funding of anything closed source as the TSC with its current membership.
Someone like to second that?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Johnny. So
I third the motion.
let's take a show of hands. So the motion is that the TSC does not how do you want to promote the
We do not endorse the funding of any closed source project through the Cardano Treasury.
Would you like to put that into the chat, Ben? So we've
Sure.
It's one for the activity tracker.
Okay. So so we've had a motion proposed by Ben. The motion is that the TSC does not endorse the funding of closed source projects. And yeah, so if you would like to vote in favour of that motion,
Through
please.
the Treasury specifically in this motion.
Yeah, that's
Well-
in the wording already.
Yes, through.
No, I know, but he didn't read it out, or I didn't hear it. So I wanted to make sure it was on the recording.
Yeah, I didn't say through the Treasury. Now you have to be slightly careful with saying through the Treasury, Ben, because you're now precluding any Catalyst funded proposals. But
Yeah, we don't need to endorse those either.
that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Great. So those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand by clicking the hand button. So I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 indeed. I can confirm, and I can take a screenshot as well.
That screenshot.
8 with Adam. Screenshot again.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My hand has gone down.
Now we're at 8. Okay. 8 raised hands.
Great.
Cool.
So
I got a new one. Very good.
Oh my God.
Okay. Did anyone not vote?
Well, you could say those opposed, and they could raise their hand now.
Yeah, so anyone opposed, please raise your hand. No opposition. Anyone abstaining, please raise your hand. No abstentions. So 8 in favour, 0 abstentions, 0 against. So the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
I took the notes, especially brought up by Duncan here, and wrote it into an email, extended my request towards Jeff So please clarify in a written form.
Yeah.
And maybe next week I have something or not. Let's see.
But if you can feedback that the TSC does not believe it would not endorse any closed source proposal, I think that sends a clear message here.
Yep. Okay.
Great.
I consider the first agenda point as completed.
Thank you very much, Marcus, and everyone else for participating. Should we Tex, you just raised your hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is there anyone in this meeting who's the owner of that Read AI?
No, I think it's Duncan left it running.
This will be Duncan
Duncan
Suter.
Suter?
Duncan Suter, yes.
Oh, okay. As long as it says. Okay. I want to make sure there's a transcript version. So
Great.
Yes, he said he would leave it running in his absence, but the recording didn't start automatically, so we've got an alternative through Tim.
So I'm going to propose for the second item that we discuss the Treasury withdrawals and comms since Tim is here. So Tim, if you'd like to just give briefers, that would be great.
No problem. Yeah, so nice to be in the call. Thanks, guys. Essentially, where we're at, obviously, is right on the cusp of the on-chain Treasury withdrawal actions. Excuse me. We were aiming for essentially this epoch. It may slip into next week. There's an awful lot of work going in to the actual putting all of the metadata into place and ensuring that everything is right. An awful lot of work has gone into the overall process, and we've been communicating about that. There was a bunch of tests, I'm sure you were aware already, that we did a bunch of tests regarding smart contract and withdrawal. We're also working on communications around the Treasury, around the vendor milestone communications. So ultimately, people should be able to follow what's going on in terms of each vendor, where they're at in terms of their overall progress, and obviously that's important because for people to get confidence that Intersect is being responsible with Treasury funds, that they are, the vendors are not just getting money without actually delivering, which is a critical path. So what we need to do from here is, obviously, we've got a comms plan in place for communicating the beginning of this, but overall, the communications for each individual vendor, we have to be really careful from an Intersect point of view. We want to facilitate their communications out towards the outside world about their proposals, but we can't be seen to be biased in any way. So our plan is to deliver a vendor symposium, which will enable all of the vendors to deliver a 3-minute pitch and then potentially a Q&A. And then what we'll do is we'll snippet that up and give it to the vendors, who will then be able to socialize that via their own comms channels, in which case we will then re-amplify that. We will obviously be singing our own praises quite a bit, but ultimately, one of the things that I want to really get across to you guys is that while all of this is going on, there's going to be a lot of debates, a lot of discussion in the community, and it's a great opportunity for the technical steering committee to actually look at what is going on in terms of how is the community actually feeling around some of these proposals, and it will sort of feed in as a data point for you guys as well. It's obviously there's an awful lot to communicate in a very short period of time, but what we want to do is, from an Intersect Comms point of view, is to invite maybe one or two of you guys onto the town hall. We'll be doing this with all of the committees, because although there's a great deal of information about the committees out there, really we just want to humanize the whole process and put a name to a face, and sometimes it's easy to capture what you guys do inside of sort of a couple of minutes talk than it is for relying on people to go and find out where that information is. But yeah, that's roughly where we're at. Obviously, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so we can agree amongst ourselves. If you pass on the invite, Tim, we can agree out of band who could join that call.
Wonderful, thank you.
And to clarify, there will be 39 treasury withdrawals being sent.
Yes,
correct.
39 individual treasury withdrawals. They will all be placed on chain simultaneously. We wanted, as I say, to try and get around the approach of favoring anybody, and also in terms of the timeline. If this goes into next week, then we're looking at 6 weeks of campaigning for this, with the closure of which would be the last week in August, which is a little bit of a shame because it sort of coincides with Rare Evo, and so we kind of really wanted to get done before that point. But yeah, and that's essentially where we're at with it.
Yeah, so there was some feedback from the IRC on Monday, and so part of the feedback was the Intersect should be in future focusing on a more focused set of proposals, looking at core rather than covering absolutely everything. There's no point in overlapping with Catalyst remit, for example. So the feeling was too much has been taken on this time round, and there was also some sentiment that, well, not all of these proposals will get funded, or it's likely that not all of the proposals will get funded, which is a disappointing outcome for the amount of effort that's gone into the process. So two things coming out of the ISC to take on board, Tim.
I completely agree with that, and thank you for letting us know. I mean, I have my own personal views, but obviously we're led by the decisions that our committees make. So in this case, I certainly agree with that. We've not been very good with actually communicating what is Intersect, and I think that's probably partly due to the fact that there's a bootstrap phase. And so because of that, there's a lot of sort of confluence between different items. What we really want to do, certainly in the next phase, is get across this kind of a helix vision of what is Intersect. So, and what does Project Catalyst do? So, I mean, ultimately, Project Catalyst will enable ADA holders to direct treasury funds towards ecosystem growth projects. And Intersect should really, and the budget process around that should be really focused on, directing treasury funds towards maintenance and development of the protocol itself. And I think once we've got that distinction clearer, I think when it comes to the next round, I think it'll be a lot easier to distinguish. But I do sort of foreshadow that potentially the success of this budget round may lead to quite a huge increase in proposals next time round. So we've got to look at ways of managing that as well. And that may mean supporting the creation of additional maybe specialist administrators or other administrators than Intersect, and indeed supporting additional MBOs as well. So that's all sort of in the plans for now, and we'll see obviously what happens this round.
Yeah, as you're saying, defining Intersect's purpose is absolutely critical.
Completely.
You've had your hand raised for a while.
Hello. Yeah, well, I'm shocked to find out that Intersect is led by its committees. It's not been my experience in TSC. But anyway, my question was, you mentioned that the 39 treasury withdrawals are going up, and this is something I brought up in the closed section last week. I'd seen a draft of one of these treasury withdrawals, and the draft stated that the milestones would be being worked out as a contract between Intersect and the vendor directly, but they weren't actually listed in the treasury withdrawal proposal in this draft. And my worry that I stated, that I'm now stating publicly as you brought it up, is if the DREPs aren't aware of what these milestones are in advance and they're just being generically referenced to the fact that they will be set up, it seems very much like a trust us bro approach to treasury withdrawals. Has that been amended in the last week to actually show milestones for DREPs so that they know what they're getting into with the vendors and what progress will be taken?
John, thanks for the question. I honestly don't know. I don't know which proposal you're referring to, but the plan is there is a platform where the milestones will be positioned. That should be up and running
alongside the proposals.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. As long as there's an availability of what the contract terms are going to be, or how often things are going to be released, or what milestones are, and there's an accessible resource, then that's fine. If it's not on the treasury withdrawal itself, as long as it references this resource, then the DREPs have some context and can say yay or nay on funding. But it was very much a generic statement I saw. I can't remember exactly what proposal it was, but it referenced the omnibus budget that had passed and then said milestones are being worked on. And I was like, oh, that's not good.
Right,
Yeah.
but there is still an issue, Johnny. If this is not being recorded on chain, there needs to be some permanent record of the milestones. And so
yeah, I'd put forward the motion that any reference material for the milestones be an on-chain reference, something that can be verified in the future. So instead of just a website that could be taken down or changed, maybe it could be hashed.
So that, sorry to interrupt you.
And you're responding to that, Tim?
Yeah. So essentially, that is going to be on chain. I mean, the idea is that this is all directly tied to smart contract, and there's the process ultimately. I think we published a blog post on this last week, which I can share with you. But essentially, there's sort of a singular control smart contract which draws down from the treasury, and then that feeds directly into individual smart contracts for the vendors, and so the milestones are built directly into the vendor level smart contracts.
My understanding is these pay out automatically unless there's objection. Is that correct?
I don't honestly know the ins and outs of the technical side of it. I'm comms. So
I feel like I've been ahead of Adam for too long. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna chime in that this was, Kevin, actually my takeaway from last week was associated with this budget withdrawal process, in that there was some question about what the GSC membership's role would be, if any, in the milestone oversight and review process of this entire budget oversight. And we never got clarity from the ISC or from Duncan in terms of that kind of proposed structure that we talked about at the closed meeting last week. And then we were going to potentially react based on confirming what role, if any, we might have in this budget process. And yeah, I know that's not really a question for Tim, but it feels like that's still an open pending question for the committee in general.
Yeah, my understanding, Adam, from the discussion on the ISC on Monday is that the TSC is not directly involved in the oversight of the proposals of the projects. The OSC has been invited to participate in the oversight there, but the technical sign-off is by third parties who will be appointed by the vendors. Okay, so make of that what you will, but it's clearly not what was originally proposed. Thanks.
Just to clarify, and I'm not here to take time on this issue again, but the invitation to OSC to participate, is that exclusively coming from TSC, where that's supposed to be committee collaboration, or is that an expectation of Intersect? Because the conversation around that is that there was never a formal request made to OSC and potentially to either committee to take on that level of work. And that conflicts with work streams that we already have going on. So I'm speaking for the committee in this instance.
Yeah, this is just what was raised from the ISC text. So maybe the situation is fluid and you haven't been formally approached.
Yeah, there's been no formal approach to the committee as of yet, even still. So,
and I can explicitly say the TSC is not been involved in setting up the OSC's involvement in treasury withdrawal and milestone review. It's not come from us.
Maybe I can shed a tiny bit of light here, which is the point that I wanted to raise in the beginning anyway. The Oversight Committee, as it stands right now, consists of certain members. I think it is not secret who that is. That is NMaker, Sunday, Cardano Foundation, Cerberus, and apologies, one more. I can look it up in a second. But the role of the Oversight Committee is primarily data assurance, so that the admin of said vendor, Intersect, performs their role in fund disbursement correctly. The Oversight Committee cryptographically signs in a transaction, authorizes through their witness in that contract that the transaction that will go to the vendor is correct and all the milestones were reached in the way that they were reached. However, the Oversight Committee does not do milestone review. That's not what it's supposed to do. So I think we have to differentiate between those two tasks. One is milestone review and approvals. I have no idea about this process at all at this moment. I'm not sure if anybody does have a super clear vision of how that should go down. But as for the Oversight Committee, it's less exciting as it may sound. The reason why the Oversight Committee and in extension Intersect did not reach out to the OSC or the TSC for their participation in the Oversight Committee is that they are committees of Intersect. Intersect saw conflicts of interest that committees within Intersect sign off on stuff that Intersect does. That's why no other committee has been approached, but only third-party projects or entities that were chosen not by the vendors, as Kevin said before, but for now were chosen by Intersect.
and if I can cut you here just to respond to that, I'd love for this to go back to ISC, because if I'm not mistaken, that's not clearly enunciated in the roles and responsibilities of the committees, nor is it in the budget documentation about how the current budget was prepared, that the committees would have this level of expectation. There was line items that could have gone to a committee, but committees who still had an opportunity to decide whether or not they'd be taking them was what my understanding was. But just some more details to flesh out that way, because basically it's still an unspoken expectation. Otherwise, committee preparation post reconciliation would have been quite a bit different. So
is my opportunity to jump in there as well. So yeah, from a comms point of view, the reason why there's so much ambiguity and it's just really just not clear, this process, even though it is in flow, is because they're sort of fine-tuning the ultimately the contracts and the details. Although the oversight committees has been there's 5 members of that have agreed. Obviously, there's a communication that needs to be put out that they all agree on, and so that takes time to do. And within the communication around that will come the wider communication about milestone. I don't know if they have got it worked out already in terms of milestone review, but obviously from my own personal view, it would certainly make sense for those with the correct competencies to be able to review technical specification delivery. So I would probably suggest, even though that, and I agree with Alexander that there's a potential conflict of interest, but milestone review could be considered one of the services that Intersect delivers as an administrator.
Adam.
Yeah, so in that case, I would like to formally motion, I guess, that the Technical Steering Committee as a body will refrain from public comment on any milestones or budget approvals or processes from Intersect as a body, given that we lack any technical oversight or management of said projects, but individual members would still be free to comment or participate as they see fit.
Do you want to write that motion into the chat, Adam?
I would be a lot better at doing that if I were not actively driving, so I'm going to refrain from trying to type.
Could someone else record that in the chat, and then we can read it out?
Yeah, Adam, can you just phrase that one more time?
Yeah, essentially the TSC as a working body will refrain from comment on any budget actions or milestones due to the lack of technical or managerial oversight endowed to the committee, while allowing individual members of the committee to participate as they see fit in the process as individuals.
I saw Neil with a thumbs down immediately on that. So does he want to provide some commentary before it goes to vote?
Maybe finish typing it in.
Yeah, well, the point, my point here is, imagine we see that do we want to tie our hands that way, Adam? Right. That's the question I want to ask, right? Because that means if individuals start doing this, individuals will be picked off by various people. Look, if the past history is anything to go by, right, people will basically be individually attacked for making technical comments, right? So what that's going to basically mean, either a few brave souls stand up and put their head above the parapet and get screamed at, or the committee does it, in en masse. That's my point.
What I don't understand about Adam's motion is why he assumes a lack of technical managerial oversight.
I think it refers back to the board's statement that they wouldn't provide administrative support. It might be related to that. But go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us that were here before the April elections, we're no strangers to being thrown under the bus by the Intersect board and the larger community at large, both as a body and individually. So I, for one, if I'm not being paid to administer the budget and a toothless lion being asked what my opinion on milestones is, I will very publicly refrain from doing so, whether or not the TSC chooses to do so. So that was just what came up during last week's closed discussion, was that we would publicly refrain from, make a statement publicly that we will refrain from comment so that we don't get drawn in and used yet again as a puppet in these machinations and political maneuvers.
Marcus, are you responding to that? Right, sorry, Tim, Will. Marcus, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Tim was first, but I would actually need to ask Tim something first in order to understand for myself if I will vote for Adam's motion. So what I would need to understand is how is this mean? So if the TSC is not involved in the formalization and definition of the contract and the milestones, then at some point in time, we are asked about something that someone else defined with some third-party vendor. We will then need to look into it, form our opinion here. So we all of it will need to look into it. And then what does it mean for who is asking us? Is it just an advice and maybe is considered or not? Or what does it mean?
So, I mean, realistically, what I would say your position is I think that there's a balance between what is considered to be a conflict of interest from an Intersex perspective, given that we're the administrator. So the administrator approving the milestones essentially, it is where the conflict comes from. But on the other side of that, there is clearly the technical competencies here to be able to review. And so I would suggest that probably a good course of action would be to offer to be available to offer advice based upon a milestone delivery as to contribute towards the decision-making process, as opposed to actually being involved directly in the decision-making process.
Okay.
Duncan.
I take Adam's point, and it's a good point, and I think Neil's point is also a good point. I'm wondering if there's a point in between that we could come up with to make the point that we're not, I don't know, perhaps something like that. They can't make us responsible for something. I mean, when we didn't have any involvement in setting it up in the first place. But we
and were prevented explicitly, and contracts were dropped.
Yes.
WellType was dropped,
All
PNSol was
things.
dropped, and Kevin was fired, and another person was let go, I think. But it's been a bit of a once bitten, twice shy experience in the TSC.
Right, but maybe we can find a form of wording where we don't completely cut off our ability to say things when we feel like we really want to, as Neil's point. So maybe there's some form of words that we can find that's in between. Not disclaim our ability to say anything, but at least make it clear what we that we're not happy with people coming and asking us to be responsible for something, or I don't know. Maybe there's something in between. Perhaps we can think.
Are we reserving the right to comment on proposals?
I think we do want to reserve the right to comment on proposals if we feel like we want to, and but we don't want people to make us responsible for doing so. At their beck and call.
We're doing that as entirely as the act of it, not as a service that's being offered to anyone.
Right. Yeah. If we feel like it, if we feel there's some obvious egregious thing and it needs to be called out, then we'll say so as a committee.
Right. But we have to be aware that in that eventuality, Duncan, there's likely to be a huge amount of hostility, public hostility. So
which is exactly why taking a collective decision might be the important thing to do, as Neil pointed out.
And as Johnny pointed out, individuals can still be singled out.
Or will be singled out. Come on, we are not.
We'll take a secret vote if we're. I don't know if we even have the ability to do that.
An in-camera vote for if you want to, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we already know that many, having read, from a personal perspective, having read many of these proposals, most of them should never be funded, right? But if we now go in and say this should not be funded because of X, Y, and Z on the proposal, what's going to happen, right? That's Tim, and that's the reality of the problem, right? The reality of the problem is that there is an egregious use of community funds for a whole bunch of things that should never have even got this far, right? Okay, and there has been no means of winnowing them out, or even renegotiating what was said, right? At this point, so we're now in the position that we can't. If we say nothing, what happens? And if we say something, the only honest thing we can say is this is a load of bullshit, right? So what happens at that point?
Yeah. So
sometimes there might be things that's even worse than that, Neil. Like, that it doesn't even meet. First, not only should it not have been funded, but it doesn't. The thing that's been produced doesn't even in the slightest approach. What it was claiming to do.
Yes, and what happens at that point? Basically, we say that the community, people don't vote for it. What happens, right? We're going to have to. This is why. Yeah.
I think the more likely outcome is people would vote for it after being directed in public about how we're just sour grapes people and complaining for the sake of complaining.
Disgruntled ex-employees, I think, is the term.
So, but Johnny, it doesn't matter which way it turns out, right? Because we haven't been able to engage in a rapprochement, or whatever the right word is for this of the issues. People lose, right? The community is losing as we speak. Okay. I'm glad this has been going out public and recorded, right? Because nothing has changed. As far as I'm concerned, the situation of the pivot has made all of this absolutely thing, and it's now just one big boondoggle, and it's very difficult to distinguish the people who are going to do real work and those who are just going to do something which would not be fit for purpose at the end, or even have a chance of being fit for purpose.
So CTEX and Tim, you've got your hands raised, and Sebastian. So Sebastian, you haven't said much. I'm inclined to say we should be calling this to a close and going into the closed session. A few points that we should go through just for people who are viewing the recording. Sebastian.
Yeah, maybe want to add, which hasn't come very clear to me yet, whether this is it about comments on whether it should have been funded or not funded, and about the feasibility from a technical standpoint, or are we wanting or not wanting to comment on the delivery in the end, whether it is technically complete, secure, sound, which are maybe two sides of the things, right? And maybe we want to do one, not the other.
But
because
the point is, in normal contractual processes, you would have set up a set of deliverables which you would hope to have achieved, right? And then you'd hold their feet. You'd basically make sure that they were delivering according to those deliverables, and you would accept some form of joint risk if things got difficult. Actually, the answer is you need both, right? You have to do both in order to get value for money.
Yeah, but is our remit to kind of ensure that there is the biggest value for money, or is the TSC's role that the network gets the technically best solution no matter what it costs, because we're not the budget committee?
No, I think
and we can maybe help the budget committee to find the best value for money, or kind of something feasible.
No, you've misunderstood the notion of value for money, right? I would say in this approach, you would be agreed up front that the technical remit was sound, right, that they were trying to go for it, and funding things that weren't sound is a bad way that was clearly not going to deliver in some way, or they were promising things that were undeliverable in the timescale they were aiming to, would be something that you shouldn't engage in, full stop. Right, so that's one aspect of value. It's not doing the things that are clearly not going to get there. But the second point is, there's going to be a big problem if people start spending money, they start incurring salaries and things like this, and basically we say, but this doesn't fit. It's got to be absolutely clear that it doesn't fit the deliverable. Otherwise, the courts are going to get involved, right? Now, and
so this is maybe the later the comment happens, the harder it is to comment also.
Exactly. This is always what I'm saying is, and at which point, this is why the whole, I don't know who the legal body, if we make a comment, are we liable? Imagine we say this code is actually insecure, right? They don't get funded, right? And then it goes to court. Who are they going to sue? Right? Why should we, if it was done all under Intersec's remit with the legal team and all the rest of it, and we could have negotiated to the fact that, look, guys, this is not going to work out. I think you should abandon it now. Let's cut our losses. But if it gets to the end and we say, actually, this isn't fit for purpose and they shouldn't be paid, right? The community is not going to pay because they are not going to get sued. That's the point. They're not going to be named in any suit. So we're in a very nasty position here as the TSC, right? If we stick our head above the parapet, we could actually see the summonses arriving on our doorstep. Right? This is what's been created by this process.
Okay, so thanks, Neil. I think we should close this down. Tex, you're going to raise a point of clarity, so we can continue discussing this in camera, but I think we probably need to just close this part down. Tex.
Yeah, but my only question had to deal with a revised charter for TSC and where that action was between TSC and the board, and getting more back into a defined remit. So like a lot of the things being discussed would be defined within that revised charter. So I wasn't sure if that was still progressing or if that had gotten blocked somewhere.
My understanding is that it's blocked for all the committees' text because the board is considering other issues. That was the feedback from the ISC meeting.
Okay. Was that on Monday?
That was on Monday, yes.
I was on leave, so I'll follow up with that. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so let's finish the discussion there. We can pick up on other points later. If you've got a point, Tim, you can raise it via DM. I'll pass it on to the TSC privately. But I'd just like to close down the other items for the sake of the recording.
That vote's going to have to go into a Slack channel, maybe.
We can put the vote into a Slack channel. Yes, but I think we might need some more discussion before we have the vote.
Yes, indeed.
So the Parameter Committee has made a statement of intent to change Plutus memory limits. This has been made publicly on the Cardano forum. What we would like to do would be to use the TSC Twitter account to promote that. Does anyone have any objections to doing that? Raise your hand if you have any objections. No. So we will promote that, and if TSC members could also promote it privately via their Twitter accounts. What we need to do is need to give 3 months notice of the intention to submit the on-chain parameter change, and we have started the clock ticking as of Monday, I believe. So thank you to everyone on the Parameter Committee who's been involved in that. Second point, 10.5.1 new no release is about to be released, possibly this week, possibly early next week. 10.6 will be delayed. Sorry, not delayed, but it will take a little longer to release, probably about 3 weeks. And we're expecting 10.5.1 to be initially pre-release, then probably a mainnet release, pending some of the sync tests by the test team. So if Adam or Johnny wants to add anything to that.
Didn't they say, just to double check, that 10.5.1 would come with the new tracing system turned on by default?
Yes, there's some configuration changes, Johnny. So we'll need to manage the communications around that. So I think you're correct about the
SPO calls on the 31st of July. So yeah, there'd be communication there, but that might be after the fact.
Well, we'll need to make it clear in the release notes that's
some configuration changes. Luckily, no need for a secondary service to be run anymore. It's integrated into the node itself, but it may be reconfiguration on the metric names.
Yeah. And whilst we're talking about reconfiguration, the team discovered that running the node with peer sharing enabled led to a performance regression on block producers. And this was noted in 10.5.0 because the peer sharing was enabled by default. The solution which will be put forward in 10.5.1 is for the node to dynamically